All right. Hey, welcome, folks. Mil-Spec Oswald here. It's going to be your SITREP. Man, I got to tell you, it's about 1:40 in the afternoon. It is 4/16/2024, coming to you live here from the great state of Texas in the Monkey Lounge. As we get into the deets, this is a re-recorded episode. It's basically the same content I just talked about with a couple of little tweaks and nuances, only because I, just like many, many folks out there that have to go through a sea of information, every once in a while, you'll even have one of your locked in ideal sources that will feed you some info that is not 100% completely vetted. And that happened to me. And I had already broadcasted it live over into Patreon. So they're going to get an update on this too. The sky's changed a little bit. So we'll talk more about that as we get into the deets. But listen, here's what we're going to talk about. The ships and a shipload of ships. Here's the thing. I've talked in the past about Club Ks. We're going to revisit that. I'm also going to just show you from the numbers perspective why we should be so concerned as citizens of this country. If you look at what our government is doing, you look at all of the areas that could potentially really disrupt our country as in its entirety. Terrorist attacks, war, the economy, all these different factors that kind of come into play. Every time you peel that onion back and you get to the center, you realize that our government are the actual ones doing this to us. I'm going to show you this, okay? So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to jump over here first and foremost. If you haven't done so and you're still thinking about doing something to prepare for what is potentially coming, which I think it's a pretty good likelihood that something is going to happen, that would be, this program is sponsored by My Patriot Supply. They are absolutely all made in America when it comes to their food products, just good, solid stuff. And so if you jump over to monkeywerxprep.com, that's monkeywerxprep.com, that will take you to the My Patriot Supply, our affiliate link. And they are currently sold out of the 3-month package that we had talked about before. That happens. If you don't jump on it right when it's out there, it'll just get eaten up because I'm not the only guy advertising. You see it, Glenn Beck and several other big names do this, and they're all basically buying from the same pool. So when it goes. It does eventually come back, and sometimes there's some better deals that come back. But this one right now, this is a 4-week emergency food supply kit. So in essence, it is just a skinny down version of what the 3-month is, but it's just less buckets, realistically. It still has 2,000 calories a day, 16 varieties, 25-year shelf life. This bucket right here, they are big. You've seen me take them out and set them next to me. They're like half of my upper body. They include breakfast, lunch, dinners, drinks, snacks. They're delicious, by the way. And they come in those 2 rigid buckets at 31 pounds. That's dry weight. So that's after they have been basically dehydrated. All of this stuff is it's actually pretty lightweight. But to give you a general perspective, 31 pounds of lightweight stuff is a lot. Okay, going for $187 right now. And then also they've got this Grid Doctor, which is a solar generator system. You can read all about that there. That's going actually about $50 off right now. But let's say that you decide, hey, I want to kind of go in a little further on what it may be. Right here below me, right here, when you go to this page, there's actually a little hourglass. You can just click on that, type in survival food. It'll pull up everything they have, and you'll get a ton of different things, not just what comes in this 4-week pouch, but there's all kinds of stuff. And I mean like freeze-dried meats. There are pizzas. There's a ton of things out there. So anyway, that's monkeywerxprep.com. That's monkeywerxprep.com. Let me jump on over here now to what is really the crux of all of this. Let's get into the skies. Okay. Currently up right now, 348. I have stripped out a fair amount of about 150, and that remains at 348 on screen. So 150 trainers have been pulled out. Now check this out, the H60s. I'm just going to let you sit and stare at this for a minute. Look at the amount of H60s up across the United States right now. 74 across the United States. That's an insane number. 6 to 8 is our usual. So what's going on with that, I don't know, but that is very, very high. Now, let's talk about air refuelers. This was from a couple hours ago, so I know that number is up. But you can see West Coast, East Coast, down south, maybe to about the Carolinas and into Georgia, but nothing further south where you would think you would have something. We've seen a lot of traffic that heads down into the Caribbean. I got nothing in terms of air refuelers. And then Europe, you could see they are actively up, which was, you're talking pretty 8 hours ahead of us in some cases, and still pretty active. Now we get over here to Asia and down to Australia. I don't really have anything. So we'll go back to our mini and let's get into the deets of what is up. Again, quantity isn't as important as the what, okay? So this right there, that's an Intel bird, Southern California. I see a sea of, those are all Customs and Border Protection all the way through, most of those. That one right there, not so much. That is a 757. It looks to be, I'm trying to see exactly what that one is all about. I don't really know. I'm curious now. I'm going to have to go back and look. But you got a G5, a couple G5s. I see several E2s. That's electronic. That's a little carrier version of an AWACS. All right. Some G5s that are up and a lot of air refuelers. Okay. That's the United States. Now let's just bounce on over here to Europe and see if we got anything new. That's not an accurate picture. I don't know what's going on with the feed. I'll have to talk to Skyglass and see if we can figure out why it wants to load a picture from another aircraft in there. So that was an air refueler third party that showed in the bigger picture. So, okay. Now we start looking at the E3s, pretty active over Europe. You could see a lot of refuelers that are currently up. R135 that's kind of over Constanta, as well as an intelligence aircraft. But you would think it would be very, very busy over the Middle East, and it's not. At least they're not showing, okay? Now we get into the intel community. Last 5 days, and just notice they're looking at Belarus. They're looking very closely at Crimea. And they're looking closely at Serbia and Kosovo. That's that little line right there. And that's Serbia over here, Kosovo, because there's a little friction between the two. Then the big long one that's higher altitude, that's actually looking at Crimea. And then, of course, last 5 days, we know what has happened in Israel. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well, because obviously I can't go an entire segment, given what has just happened, and not talk about what the next phase of this is going to be. So, all right, then that's the U.S. Just notice you got something out, looks to be towards Kansas, and then on westward with a little bit of a look there. It's an interesting deal. Southern Cal, Texas, Florida, the normal locations for intel gathering. Now let's talk E6, TACAMO, take charge, move out. These are talking to your subs and your nukes. I don't know what the square pattern is up there. Very odd, to say the least. Never seen them do that before. That one right there. All right. Pause it for just a second. That's the U.S. Virgin Islands. I do believe when you start to park an E6 down far south like that, one of two things. One, you're either getting that thing out of harm's way so that if something happens domestically, you don't get your stuff doesn't get toasted. Two, there's probably maybe even some subs that are down between kind of the Caribbean and the northern end of South America. Maybe. I also am one, and I've been saying this, I'm watching C-17s. I'm watching Flashbang go down to the Virgin Islands for Christmas. I'm watching all of this activity that's happening down there in the USVI. And I do believe that what we are seeing there, more than likely, that's going to be their go-to. So when things go hot in the United States, which I think they will eventually go hot, that's going to be their escape. They're going to all get down there out of harm's way. Nobody here in the United States can touch them. And then they're just going to let us fend for ourselves. That's what I think is going to happen. All right. Now we'll continue on with that. About 13 seconds left. East Coast, Gulf of Mexico, West Coast, right? Talking to subs. Again, take charge, move out. It's a Navy platform, and it's an airborne command center. Okay. Now let's talk Homeland Security. Okay, just notice little blips. I just showed you all the ones that were up in terms of real-time data, but just notice, north to the south, quite a bit of activity between Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, okay? Around the Horn in Florida, then down into the Caribbean. Very active. Now, what I don't see, I'm not seeing a lot of reports about the Haitians or the Sea of Haitians coming into the United States. I don't know what's going on with that. Last time we had a big outbreak, we ended up with, 15,000 at our southern border in Texas. And then they said they were deporting them all. 72%, based on the numbers that I could gather, actually stayed in the country. And the ones that got deported were the troublemakers, so they say. Okay, now behind me on the screen, this is going to be your R135s. The key piece is, if you notice where my mouse is right now as I froze it, that is looking at an R135 that ran down to the Texas-New Mexico border, all right? Notice that it runs up towards Beale in California, and then the other piece is that my guess is they're looking probably a long sideways look down the border there, southern border of Texas. That's just a guess. But when you start to look at this one up here, again, I think they're looking either in the Dakotas or they're looking in Montana. I had someone tell me that there are cartels in Montana. Wait and see. All right. And then, of course, look at this little just joggle out over the Baltic Sea, obviously looking at Kaliningrad. That tells you there's a lot of stuff on the move. And then that right there just kind of wrapping around Belarus and Kaliningrad, looking at St. Petersburg, Russia. That's looking into Belarus and Ukraine. All right. Again, R135s, where I don't see them, Middle East. You'd think you'd see them there. I didn't see anything over Asia either. So, okay, let's talk AWACS. Remember, I just pointed out just a minute ago that R135 came down to almost the same exact area. Now, all of a sudden, you're seeing an advanced warning system coming down almost out over that Baja Peninsula area, very, very far south. Are they worried about a nuke coming across the border or some dirty bomb? Maybe. That would make sense. And then the R135 down there tells you they're looking for something, right? Okay, and then, of course, you can see some stuff going on, over the eastern seaboard. But then we go down, man in the middle, those tight circles, again, out over the Mediterranean, going across Italy, over towards Crete, right? And then back up towards Constanta and the Black Sea, etc. We get out here, again, I got nothing from Asia. The usual place in Australia, all right? Okay, now let's talk drones. Now the drone aspect, again, big transition from Southern Cal over to what looks to be Ohio, maybe close to Dayton. Could be doing anything, air show, maintenance, could be any kind of thing, really. Then you see the one that goes up, that's a Q9. They're at the Winnipeg border of Canada and the U.S. Little low altitude one there up in further Canada. That's high altitude going out over the Black Sea. Little low altitude ones in kind of blip there near Istanbul and over in Turkey, and then down towards Bahrain and Qatar. All right, I see a little one there. I don't know where that is actually. Maybe India still, maybe a little east of India, and then of course Japan. Right, we see a lot of drone activity out there near Japan. Nothing south, and nothing down in Australia. All right. Okay, now let's get into the news aspect of this. We're going to cover a lot of things. First and foremost, this one is going to be. This is a data point for you, because when we start to talk about the breakdown of our society, we start talking about the fact that we are not able to capture and find everything that comes across our borders. We start talking about Club Ks. We start talking about just the integrity of our country starting to really waver. And then we read these headlines. The flashbang's parole pipeline imports over 950,000 foreign nationals into the U.S., exceeding the population of South Dakota. 950,000, all right? Now, I'm going to show you some data that was captured that I won't go into a lot of the details. I'm just going to show you pictures and why it is important and why that is a big concern given this number, all right? Let's go over here. Tax day. Yeah, that's the day that the weaponized IRS basically comes for their pound of flesh. And here it is. Illegal immigration costs American taxpayers over $150 billion a year. That's housing. That's all the programs that go with it. I find it interesting that in this particular one, they show women and children. Actually, that may be a child, and that's a child, and that's a woman. Okay. Pretty rare nowadays. Matter of fact, almost everything that's coming across the border are either single adults, not a lot of children, maybe because they realize that their children are gone missing. You know, you're talking 85,000, don't know what happened to them. Checked in at the border, supposedly went into our country and vanished. Okay, 85,000. Let that sink in. Okay, about $150 billion. Right. On over here to Flashbang. This one here, just notice he's headed up to Scranton, Pennsylvania. He's there now, actually. And that's right up there in the hometown of Dunder Mifflin for you Office fans. All right, moving on. Now, this one right here, U.S. House Speaker announces aid package bills for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. Yeah, this dude right here, he needs to get his ass marched out. Like, here's your box, throw your stuff in it, get out. Okay? He's a traitor. The only scarier thing to me, other than this guy being up there, is the fact that they came out and said that Trump fully supported him. That scares me a bit. That tells me that Trump is going in blind yet again. He's going to be surrounded by the deep state, because if this guy you haven't figured out, this guy's a deep state guy. Okay. He's going to be surrounded by deep state, and we're going to be in the same situation, wondering why we can't get anything done. It's because they're going to tie his hands up with a bunch of people around him that aren't really there for him. They're there to ensure he doesn't get anything accomplished. All right. But here we go again. If you want to know what it is by the numbers, within this bill, the Ukraine piece. So first off, the Israel piece, $14.2 billion. And this is just going off of my mind here. Okay. So bear with me. It may be off a little bit. Ukraine one was, I want to say 48 billion. Okay. 48 billion. They're going to try to pass through this. Of course, they always bundle it because, if you want to protect Israel, well, then we have to, we're going to have to load it with all the other stuff that's in there. Why we're paying for freedom and independence for these countries. This one I get, okay, because that's a big one. That's an important one. That's a deep state stronghold. That is nothing more than we're trying to just protect our own interest in terms of the superconductor chips that go into all our vehicles, because we know if this goes bye-bye, Chinese, the Chinese basically will have total control of all the chips. And that will impact everything that we do here in America, the cost of everything, and whether or not we can even produce anything. Because if they decide, you know what, we're sanctioning you, you're not going to get any chips, then we're all driving around old stuff. Okay, so not good. Anyway, nonetheless, this is just yet another reason why we need, well, that ought to tell you all you need to know right there. This is why we need to bounce all of these folks out. They need to all get pink slips, send them packing, and we need to start over and with people outside of the swamp. Okay. All right. Now we're going to get more into the ship side of things here in just a second, because I've got a lot to cover. But first, I just want to show you this off the eastern seaboard. These are danger boxes. They're active danger boxes. Why they're red. Same thing with these. Okay, that's a little concerning, especially when you start to see them out here in this general area looking at stuff. Okay, this general area, lots and lots of drone activity. But then when you start to think about the ships coming along, all they got to do is park them right out here, 20 miles off the shore. You'd never even see them, and they could do some serious damage. Okay, and I'm not talking about military ships. So let's get into that. All right. So first up, let me take you over here to the headlines, and we're going to talk about, well, let me hide this and hide this. We're going to go into this, okay? This becomes important because this is a DEA, all right? And you can see that's a weapon. These are freight boxes that are actually not weapons, okay? It's furniture, okay? And so what happens is smugglers will create false walls, false floors. They'll modify things in all kinds of various aspects. They'll take, shrink wrapped, perfectly good, solid, boxes that contain anything, furniture, food, whatever it may be, and they'll hide drugs and weapons and everything else inside here. Okay. This is just one of the many reasons we have to stay on our toes. When you see things like this coming across the border with a sea of guns and ammo hidden in here and no actual stuff that is really supposed to be in those boxes, and then you have a porous border, or you have, like we say, this one right here with, 950,000 foreign nationals coming into the United States. That should be a big, big, big concern for all of us, all right? And so that's why you have to pay close attention to it. Now, why is that important? Well, it becomes important because of this right here. A couple things. Let me just give you a little data point for you. And that is the fact that 80% of U.S. port terminals are leased and operated by foreign companies. Did you know that? I will tell you, I didn't know that. I knew that there was some out there. I didn't know it was 80%. So now you start to go, well, okay, if 80% of them are controlled by foreign entities, how are we catching anything? Well, what's the number for stuff being caught? Well, let's go into that. Let's see if I can find the data, and I think it is, this is not it. Hang on, I do have it. Here we go. What percentage of ships, or actually containers, what percentage of containers are actually scanned when they come in? So check this out. This is a number you probably didn't want to hear, but Customs and Border Protection only scan 3.7% of roughly the 11 million containers per year that come into our ports. All right. That also means that only about 1% of the total, or 104,000 containers, are checked at ports overseas. Similar figures can be found in the EU, where only about 1.5% of all cargo arriving at EU ports are scanned. You want to know how they're moving people and drugs and weapons around the world with very little of it being caught? This is how. It's not being scanned, and it's just making its way right in. But it doesn't stop there, okay? Let's talk Club K for a minute. Now, we get back over here. If you're not familiar with the Club K missile system, that's going to be this one right here, okay? What it is, it's a Russian-made cargo container that is, it hides a missile system, okay? That can be anything. It carries four weapons. Let me get a little closer shot. You can see this one is just basically showing you how it operates on the deck of a container ship. Okay, this is a very small container ship. If you took it on a big container ship, the same thing. Okay, but we take that. This is what it looks like. All right, close all the doors up, put the cap down. You're not going to see anything. It looks just like a regular container. It is activated by it's got a battery system, and an encrypted GPS is how they talk to these worldwide. How many are out there? Nobody knows. Holds four weapons, four missile systems. It can be chemical, biological, nuclear, or conventional. All right. Range on this thing, I think it can go roughly about halfway across the United States. One cruise missile, if you were to fire it from, say, West Coast, it can hit probably Texas. Okay. There's that aspect of it. But they're not the only ones. It's not just the Russians. And so let me just show you how we got to this stage. All right. Familiar with, are you familiar with uranium-1? Okay. Uranium-1 is something we've talked about a lot in the past. It's a play-to-pay scheme that was taking place by our government. Behind the helm was, at that time, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Okay, and what she was doing, along with her other cronies, and oh, by the way, none of them are in jail. None of them have ever been prosecuted for this. But here's what they were doing. The State Department would go and find a foreign entity, and they would say, hey, listen, we want to buy in on your program. We'd like to show you our love and support from the United States. We're going to give you a bunch of money. But in turn, what we want you to do is you're going to basically turn around and give a donation to the Clinton Foundation, all right, or the Clinton Global Initiative. And so what would happen is these heads of state in foreign countries would get $100 million. They would turn around and they would make a significant donation, $60, $80 million back to the Clinton Foundation. And in turn, they would get government programs. They would get buy-ins. Case in point, right here, just off about head level there, you'll see Gulf Tainer. The owner of Gulf Tainer, it's the Jafar family. Dr. Jafar, the oldest, is or was Saddam Hussein's nuclear scientist. Okay, that should tell you all you need to know. But they are in bed with Rosatom, which is one of the Russian manufacturers of the Club K. Well, guess what? Hillary Clinton and Obama and all these other folks in our government turned around and gave Gulf Tainer, a UAE company, a 35-year port lease in Cape Canaveral called Project Pelican. And they didn't just do it there, okay? You would think, oh, well, we will learn our lesson from that. Everybody was wondering, how did we allow this to even take shape? And then Trump came right in and somebody told him, hey, that's a good idea. Let's give a 35-year contract for the port of Delaware. And he signed off on it, and they did it. So now you got two major ports on the East Coast that are owned and operated by UAE company, Dr. Jafar, the very ones that are in bed with the Russians on the Club K missile system, running our ports in the United States. And they have been, at least since 2017. So how much of that stuff got in? It's just like the guns and weapons. How much of that is coming in right now and has been given to the Chinese and all the Muslims that have come across our border illegally? We won't know until it happens, right? But again, that's the one thing. Now, it doesn't just stop with the Russians. Check this out. Here, that's the Chinese. What? You mean the Chinese have it? Oh, yeah. And not just the Chinese. Guess who else has them? Yeah, the Iranians. You wonder why our East Coast is like, hey, wait a second. Why are all the danger boxes off the East Coast? It's because it's not just the Russians that have them. Now, Dutch Sense asked the other day, he said, hey, get this over to Monkey Werx. And I looked at it. It was a similar system at a Northrop Grumman symposium or something for defense contractors. The United States has been working on a very similar thing for about at least a decade. Lockheed had them, Northrop Grumman's had them, and most of them have just been scuttled. Like the DoD was like, yeah, we're not going to focus on that. We need to go focus on other things. So the capabilities are out there, but they're not really being used. So when you see that at a Northrop Grumman thing, that's not a Club K. That is actually a U.S. defense system that goes on these. Now, they can be used for air to surface to surface, surface to air, and surface to, well, I guess surface to surface would be surface to ground. So they can launch anything out of these. It's just a launch tube. So whatever they stuff down them, as long as it fits the bill, it's game on. Okay. Very dangerous, because if they get into the interior of our country and they decide to put an all-out strike on the United States, you take the submarine drone, which is a nuclear missile, 100 megaton missile that the Soviets have, or the Russians have. You park that off your East Coast and you detonate that. You pretty much flood everybody out on the East Coast. But then you take these, and if they're ingrained inside our country, you could be minutes away from striking anywhere in the United States and taking out critical infrastructure within minutes, and we'd have no way to defend against it, because once it's launched, that's an empty tube, nothing left in there. You're not going to go take out a crate on your own turf that has nothing in it. the damage would be done. And at that point, we're fighting ourselves. So very, very dangerous and slippery slope when you have the porousness of what we are seeing today with 3.7% being checked. Okay. Now we talk about the cargo ship that hit the Baltimore bridge and took it out in its entirety, and the fact that that's going to probably be years before they get a new bridge built. And so then you talk this. How does this even happen? 26 barges break loose and float down the Ohio River. Yeah, and they're like in a panic, right? They're out there closing bridges and everything in its path all the way down the Ohio River. Because they're afraid that one of these barges that are very heavy could hit one of those columns, cause an infrastructure issue, and then put more ships and more bridges out of commission. So, yeah, not good. And how this continues to happen, I don't know. This is just kind of blows you away. They're saying it's because it was, high water. Like they've never had that before, right? All right, and then here's this. This is just the smoking gun. The FBI has now opened a criminal probe into the Baltimore bridge collapse. You don't think? Remember, we sit there and say, "Oh, wait a minute, there's something isn't right about this. It stinks to high heaven." They tell us we're all crazy, a bunch of conspiracy theorists, and then it turns out the FBI is like, we probably don't want to say anything, but we're going to go. Let's go take a look at this. Why? Well, because the black box on the ship is missing 2 minutes of data. Yeah, 2 minutes of data gone. And that means that provides data on position, speed, heading, radar, bridge, audio, and radio communications. Gone. 2 minutes. Critical 2 minutes. How does that happen? That's why criminal probe is very accurate. We got cyber attack. That's a hack. All right. Now you can go back to the Able Danger guys, and they used to always talk about how these aircraft could be hacked remotely. And the ships are no different. And so is the cars, the vehicles. Okay. All right. This right here is just a live picture of all of the cargo containers around the world. And as you kind of zoom in, you can see how many are just sitting. This is where the danger box is. This is why they're so concerned, because they want to make sure that the Chinese aren't pushing weapons through here. So they're probably looking very closely at everything that's coming through this path, headed down here into Panama and into the Caribbean. And there you see it, all the way up the East Coast too. Okay, this is going to be your cyber threat map for today, and it is lit up like a Christmas tree. Just give this a second and watch the strikes come in. Very active today. So if you're getting that spin or you're getting anything weird happening, internet going offline, whatever, that is just a small piece and fraction of what we are seeing here. This stuff attacks everything from schools to hospitals to critical infrastructure to our military. It hits all kinds of different things. They come in. The white ones, if you want a legend, red is the attack. This orange, these are infections. And then the other is spam. That's just the stuff that locks you up where nothing moves because it's just being continuously peppered. All right, let's get over here to nothing to show you from Biggs. We're going to look at Dover. Dover's an interesting mix because the fact that we have airplanes coming in from Mexico City, Atlas Air. We've got Amerijet coming in from Miami. There's been a lot of things. This Reach coming in from Titusville, that'd be Kennedy Space Center. A little C-17 coming up. KAF, I don't know who that is. We'll move on down, though. You can see camera flight headed across the drink, 767. That's going to be troops. These two 747s, one's headed to Ramstein, the other headed to Israel, but that's an Israeli plane coming in to pick that up. And then another 6-7. So we've got what looks to be a lot of troops going into Europe, into Ramstein. Where they go from there, no telling. I will say this. This is Ramstein right here as you see them arriving. The board at Ramstein is very busy, very active. A lot of stuff floating in and back and forth between Kuwait and Turkey out of Ramstein. And then you've got these big ones coming in. This is probably more tanks, more artillery, etc. Where it goes, I don't know. I don't see it going over to RZE quite yet. Maybe another staging ground that could be moved into the stuff headed to the Middle East. Another camber that, again, don't know what that's all about. I don't know French lines. I don't know who these are. Remember, Ramstein's a military base. So, but you can see the outbound. This one is the one, that right there. Remember when I was just talking about the fact that 950,000 foreign nationals coming into our country? Well, guess what? This right here. This is Omni, right? It's a charter. That's how they're getting them in, too. It's not just this, though. It's C-17s to the military bases, charters, commercial airlines. They're flying them in. That is why I say our government is against us, not for us, because they are indeed aiding and abetting every one of these folks coming across our border, right? And you turn around and you see these arms shipments that sneak into our country. 3.7% of 11 million containers are being checked. That's just assuming that the relationship between Hezbollah and Iran isn't moving stuff right underneath our borders in Texas. And the tunnel systems, 250 miles worth of tunnel systems that they know are there and they watch, okay? All right, here we go. Look at this. Again, this is from Turkey. Let me go, actually going back to Turkey. Let's get over to RZE Poland, forwarded operating base, and I don't see anything on the board other than one British flight that's coming inbound. I'm not seeing anything. So we're just move on from there. That's RZE. Tells you there's nothing going in. This is national cargo. Just notice Hong Kong, Anchorage, Hong Kong. These are all. That is Seoul, Korea coming to Anchorage. That one is probably the only one out of this entire mix that is probably going to be artillery. All this other stuff, Hong Kong, they're not getting anything out of Hong Kong, okay? Other than medicine, face masks, things that they're going to need. Okay, and then here, this is the Brits. Very, very active, but just notice you see one coming out of RZE. That's the one we talked about. It's an Airbus. That'll be troops 100%. The rest of these just kind of in and around Europe and in the Middle East. And then one really far south, as you can see down here in Africa. And then the camber flights, got 4 of them on the board. Dover, Sofia, Baltimore, Anchorage. You can see they're just kind of bouncing back and forth between here and Europe. Yeah, looks like everything up here is European bound. All right, there's your Omni. Omni's all over the board. You can see a lot of flights out to Asia. Okay, so between Guam and Philippines, down to Okinawa. They're kind of all over the board right now. All right. But they, too, will move the immigrants. Okay, let's talk about this. We mentioned in the past just the sheer fact that we were training the Palestinians security stuff, 5,000 of them over in Jordan. That was before the October 7th attack. We have talked about the fact that the U.S. gave up a bunch of sanctions, gave Iran a bunch of money, and we're talking like $6 billion. Another report of $9 billion. I mean, we've seen this happen over and over again. And yet, here we go, as Iran is getting ready to attack Israel, we find out that that flashbang let the UN sanctions on Iran's missiles expire before this attack. So we're enabling them, okay? That's just a big key takeaway, but we're not only just enabling the Iranians, we saw it all the way back from the Obama days. We're also taking these like-minded individuals and we are giving them everything they need, all the tools they need. We're bringing them right here into the United States. And I'm not talking about the Iranians. I'm talking about the Muslims that are out of Gaza and out of Palestine that hate us, okay? So anyway, this is not a coincidence, and it, believe me, we've got blood on our hands here, folks. All right, and then this is the other piece too. Israel's saying that they're getting ready to go back at them. They're not done with Iran. In fact, this should get very interesting, given the amount of drones and missiles that came out of inside the interior of Iran at Israel, and now all of a sudden Israel is getting ready to come back. I would imagine there will be areas like drone factories and even the nuclear program that Israel is about to take out. You can bet that the aircraft that are fueled and on the ground and loaded and ready to go are a bunch of F-35s, right? They'll fly right in under radar and they'll take all this stuff out. And then it'll be game on. Now, again, I've said this in the past. There is a trilateral agreement between Russia, Turkey, and Iran. Iran's not going anywhere. Turkey's not going anywhere. Russia's not going anywhere. Okay? Israel's not going anywhere. Because as we look at those three trilateral agreements and who's coming against Israel, that tells you Israel's still here. All right? So it'll be interesting to watch how this one unfolds. Let's move on. Now, Iran is basically coming back and telling Israel, hey, listen, if you hit us after we've hit you, that we're getting ready to use weapons that we've never used before. That could be anything, chemical, biological, nuclear, could be anything. They're getting it all from Russia. Oh, by the way, you may have heard that the United States came back and said, well, we're not going to support a counterattack from Israel against Iran because Russia came in and basically said, if the U.S. has anything to do with an attack against Iran, then they're taking on us. Russia says they will get engaged. So this could get really interesting. Could this be what triggers everything? I will tell you this. Based on all the trains, the cargo ships, and everything else that we have watched videos of, and the things getting unloaded in seaports in like Greece and all around the world, it's all desert camo. That tells you this is all coming back to the Middle East. Ukraine may be a flash in the pan, but given the stuff that's moving, that stuff's not going to Ukraine. There's really not any desert environment inside Ukraine where a tan tank or a Bradley or anything is going to be applicable without being painted. It's going to stand out like a sore thumb. So that tells you that the U.S. has known for a while that this is where it's all going, and they've been positioning assets within the region for quite some time. Okay. While we're all looking at other things, this is what they're doing. Now, this guy right here, Saudi Arabia, publicly acknowledges defending Israel from Iran. Well, you think, wait a minute, they're Muslims. I thought they all stuck together. Yeah, this guy is breaking rank. One, he cannot stand flashbang, right? Joe Biden, just like us. Can't stand him. And he is the guy behind the Abraham Accords. When Trump stood it all up and got it started, this guy took off and has basically taken up the reins. As I've mentioned in the past, Bibi announced back in either August or September that they had already inked the deal on the Abraham Accords with all of these partner nations. It just wasn't officially announced. He was getting ready to announce it when Iran attacked Israel and everything stopped. Now, if you know your Bible, that's ringing a bell for you, because what that tells you is, remember that the Antichrist comes onto the scene and he confirms a covenant. That means the covenant already exists. He is doing nothing more than confirming a covenant that already exists that hasn't been publicly announced yet. So I'm not saying by any means the AC is getting ready to ink this or this guy's the AC or anything like that. I'm saying that the covenant is out there and that the Bible tells us that the covenant gets confirmed by the AC. So this could be 3 years out, 2 years out, a year out, a month out, a week out. Something happens, maybe Damascus, Isaiah 17, that basically wipes Damascus out, that brings everybody to the table. It could be Bibi. He's an old school dude. He may just go pop a nuke off in Tehran, bring everybody to the table. There's no telling which way this could all go. All I know is we got to just keep eyes on it, because somehow it is going to end up coming back on us here in the United States. Okay. All right. Well, listen, that is going to do it for our SITREP today. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your afternoon and evening, and we'll see you on Thursday with the next one. Keep that powder dry and stay frosty. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out. Thanks for watching, folks. You can check out the latest gear and products by selecting the QR code on your screen now, or go to monkeywerxus.com.